Religious indoctrination. An evenly divided Supreme Court just rejecting a plan to publicly fund a religious charter school. But just barely. The push to use taxpayer dollars for religious education isn't slowing down anytime soon. Whatever happened to the First Amendment? Welcome to the No Spin Zone. Graphs Grievances starts right now. In major news you might have missed last week, the U.S. Supreme Court refused to let Oklahoma open the first religious public charter school in the country. The proposed school, a virtual K-12 program called St. Isidore of Seville Catholic Virtual School. Yes, named after the patron saint of the internet. Who knew there was one? It would have taught Catholic doctrine, including the Ten Commandments and the lives of saints, and been run by the Archdiocese of Oklahoma City and the Diocese of Tulsa. It was to be opened to students of all faiths, but as a private employer, the school could legally discriminate in hiring, including favoring Catholics and potentially rejecting LGBTQ+ applicants. After the state charter board approved the plan, Oklahoma Attorney General Genter Drummond, a Republican, sued to stop it. He argued that funding a religious school with public money violates both the U.S. Constitution's Emoluments Clause and Oklahoma's state constitution, which bans public funds from supporting religious institutions. Despite support for the school from Republican Governor Ken Stitt, the Oklahoma Supreme Court struck down the plan, warning it would create a, quote, slippery slope that could undermine religious freedom by blurring the line between church and state. Supporters appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court, hoping the conservative 6-3 majority would side with them. But guess what? That didn't happen. In a surprise 4-4 deadlock, the Supreme Court let the Oklahoma ruling stand, effectively blocking the school from opening. The tie likely happened because Justice Amy Coney Barrett recused herself, reportedly due to her close ties with a lawyer advising the school. That left just 8 justices: conservatives Thomas, Alito, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Chief Justice John Roberts, plus the 3 liberal justices, Sotomayor, Kagan, and Jackson. And while the court didn't say how anyone voted, legal experts widely speculate that Chief Justice Roberts sided with the liberals. If true, it's another rare but not unheard of move from Roberts, who has sometimes tried to preserve the court's image on hot-button issues. Still, because there was no majority opinion, the ruling applies only to Oklahoma and sets no national precedent. But make no mistake, this issue will come back before the court. And next time, with Barrett likely voting, the results could be very different. This case shows the ongoing tension within the First Amendment. The Establishment Clause says the government cannot endorse religion, while the Free Exercise Clause says the government can't discriminate against religion. But here is the thing. Refusing to fund religious schools isn't discrimination. It's neutrality. It's the government not picking sides. America's founders understood this well. After independence, the U.S. government rejected religious establishments, and by 1833, every state had formally disestablished religion. In the 1940s, the Supreme Court confirmed the Establishment Clause applies to state governments too. Today, most legal scholars agree it's unconstitutional for the government to fund religious institutions directly. But that line keeps getting blurred. Let's talk about school vouchers, because that's how public money is already reaching private, often religious schools. Here's how it works. Vouchers take taxpayer dollars intended for public schools and give them to families who use them for private education, including religious schools. Supporters claim it's just about giving parents choice, but in reality, public funds are being diverted from public schools to private, overwhelmingly religious institutions. In fact, about 80% of private school students in the US attend religiously affiliated schools. So vouchers effectively fund religious education, just with parents acting as the middlemen. In 2022, the Supreme Court gave vouchers its constitutional blessing. The court ruled that as long as parents choose the schools and have both secular and religious options, it's not government endorsement of religion. Because, they argued, the state isn't directly giving money to religious schools. It's giving it to parents. And that's what you call a gigantic loophole you could drive a truck through. In many areas, religious schools may be the only private option, so the choice argument doesn't hold up. It's government-funded religious education by default, just with an extra step. But back to last week. On the day the Supreme Court deadlocked on the Oklahoma case, the U.S. House of Representatives narrowly passed a bill that would create the first ever federal school voucher program. The bill sets aside $5 billion for families to spend on K through 12 tuition, homeschooling, and virtual education. And yes, much of that would go to religious schools. If passed in the Senate and signed into law by President Trump, this would bring school vouchers to all 50 states, including places like New York and California, which have long resisted them. And it's not just funding. Several states are trying to force religion back into the classroom. In Texas, the state legislature just, as of yesterday, passed a bill requiring all public schools to display the 10 Commandments in every classroom. And Texas Governor Greg Abbott is expected to sign it into law, with it taking effect in September. The law mandates a framed or poster-sized version, at least 16 by 20 inches, in every classroom. Texas, sadly, isn't alone. Louisiana passed a similar law last year, which was blocked by a federal judge. Arkansas recently passed its own version, too. These laws are clear violations of the First Amendment, forcing Christian doctrine into public education. Public schools are supposed to serve everyone, not promote one religion over another. Public schools exist to educate, not to evangelize. Using public money to fund religious indoctrination undermines the constitutional wall between church and state. It's not just bad policy, it's fundamentally un-American. Thank you for watching Graf's Grievances. Let me know what you think. Please consider supporting my channel via the Venmo link below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and join me tomorrow for more.